So for like the entire history of human invention, technology has been a fundamentally passive thing, you know?
Right. It's just always waiting for you.
Exactly. Like a hammer just sits on a workbench until you pick it up. A search engine sits there blankly until you type in a query. The tool never swings itself.
Because the defining characteristic of a tool has always been its complete dependence on human intent. It's essentially just in standby mode.
But looking through today's stack of, 20 fresh research papers and lab leaks for this deep dive, that law of physics just completely broke.
Yeah, the hammer is waking up.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
waking up, looking at the nails, and asking you if it should start building a house. So, welcome to your morning briefing. Our mission today is to cut through the noise and get you up to speed on the absolute bleeding edge of AI.
Because we are moving way beyond chat interfaces today.
Way beyond. We're going to see how AI is actively interacting with the physical world, totally revolutionizing developer tools, and triggering some massive legal showdowns.
We're tracking a really profound pivot from passive generation to autonomous orchestration.
Yeah, because today we're covering everything from an AI literally ordering your morning coffee and predicting natural disasters to a $600 million Hollywood AI buyout and a massive constitutional showdown between a leading AI lab and the Pentagon.
It's a heavy stack of sources, but it really highlights that we're dealing with agents that take actions now, rather than algorithms that just answer questions.
So let's start right where you, the listener, interact with AI the most, your personal devices. The source material highlights Gemini's new task automation on the new Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra, which perfectly captures this agentic shift.
It really is the perfect example.
It's wild. You can literally just ask the phone to order an Uber to the airport and then tell it to grab a flat white and a chocolate croissant from Starbucks.
And the fascinating part isn't that it just opens the apps. I mean, we've had macros for years. It's the reasoning applied between the steps. In that Starbucks example, the AI encounters a choice that was never explicitly in your prompt. It actually asks itself, should this chocolate croissant be warmed?
And it deduces on its own that, logically, yeah, chocolate croissant should be served warm.
Exactly.
It just selects that option. And it even skipped the airline terminal selection in the Uber app because it, cross-referenced your local airport and realized it only has one terminal.
It's doing the cognitive heavy lifting.
But I have to ask about the mechanism here. How is it actually doing this? Is it quietly talking to the Uber and Starbucks servers through an API, or?
No, actually, it's doing something much more human, which is crazy. It's using UI orchestration.
Wait, what does that mean?
The model is literally looking at the screen layout. It's understanding the visual hierarchy of the buttons, and it's simulating the exact taps a human finger would make.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it prepares the entire transaction sequence and just presents it to you for, a final review tab.
Which is incredible, but I feel like that level of interaction might soon seem kind of quaint, because Perplexity just announced something they're calling the personal computer. And I need you to walk me through this because the premise is just wild.
It's a huge step up.
They want to turn a spare Mac Mini into your 24/7 digital proxy.
Right, so the idea is that you set up this device on your local network, give it full access to your files, and just let it act as an autonomous employee.
While I sleep.
While you sleep.
Yeah.
It combs through your data, it drafts emails to investors, it synthesizes reports into slide decks, and it even ranks job candidates based on incoming resumes. You just wake up to a completed checklist.
Okay, wait, hold on. Giving an AI unrestricted access to my local network and my file system while I sleep sounds like an absolute cybersecurity nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
Is Perplexity or, anyone in these sources addressing the glaring security risks of these agents just going rogue or getting hijacked by malware?
It is the elephant in the room, for sure. The literature mentions sandboxing and localized encryption, but the reality is that any system with read and write access to your entire digital life introduces a massive attack vector.
It's terrifying.
We are essentially trading ultimate convenience for unprecedented vulnerability.
And it completely upends how software itself is built. Looking at the developer perspective in our sources, Steve Yeg just launched this open-source AI orchestrator called Gastown.
Yeah, that was a fascinating read.
He outlines these 8 levels of coder evolution, claiming that at level 5, developers actually just abandon their IDE altogether.
Right, they never even open a coding environment.
They just act as managers for a fleet of AI agents writing the code.
The developer becomes an orchestrator of synthetic labor.
Yeah.
But, Yeg points out a really severe psychological side effect of this.
The AI vampire.
Yes. It is a completely new vector for occupational burnout.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the AI vampire concept is brilliant, think about it like having an incredibly caffeinated, hyper-competent executive assistant who works at, like, 100 times normal human speed.
Which sounds great in theory.
Right. You'd assume that frees up your schedule.
Yeah.
But instead, they never stop handing you an endless barrage of decisions. It's just, I finished that. What's next? I drafted this. What's next?
You don't get time back at all.
You just hit decision fatigue until you literally collapse.
Because the bottleneck is no longer the execution of the work. The bottleneck is your human cognitive capacity to approve, QA, and direct the work. The AI drains your executive function, hence the vampire moniker.
Wow. But for that Samsung agent to successfully deduce your croissant needs warming, or for a coder agent to understand complex software architecture, it requires an incredibly granular understanding of the world.
Yes, the bottleneck shifts entirely from reasoning to perception.
Which is why the major labs are suddenly obsessing over massive multimodal data streams, right?
Exactly. To take autonomous action, these models have to synthesize unstructured reality into structured data.
And Anthropic just updated Claude to reflect exactly this. It doesn't just output walls of text anymore. It can generate interactive, inline charts mid-conversation.
The interactive elements are a huge leap.
If you ask a complex chemistry question, it generates a fully interactive, clickable periodic table right into the chat interface. It's building UI elements on the fly to help you perceive the data better.
And then at the enterprise scale, AWS is pushing perception even further with the Amazon Nova model.
Right, the video search.
Yeah, they're scaling multimodal video search to a staggering degree. The sources detail a system processing 30.5 million seconds of video.
Which is nearly 8,500 hours.
Right. And the search mechanism is what caught my eye.
Yeah, how does that work? You aren't relying on some intern having manually typed beach in the metadata tags of a video file, right?
Exactly. You just type a natural language query like, person walking on beach at sunset, and the system finds the exact moments in that massive video lake.
But how does it actually match the text to the pixels without metadata?
It relies on audiovisual embeddings.
Okay.
The system converts the visual content of the video in your text query into mathematical vectors in a shared semantic space.
So by converting video into mathematical vectors, Amazon Nova is basically assigning a massive string of coordinates to every single frame.
Yes.
And then when you type Sunset Beach, it translates those words into coordinates too and just looks for where the text and video coordinates overlap in that digital space.
That is the perfect way to visualize it.
Yeah.
If the math matches, it finds the video. It fundamentally understands the visual concept of a sunset beach, rather than just matching keywords.
Mind-blowing. But the absolute peak of this real-world synthesis is coming out of Google Research with a project called Ground Source.
Oh, the flood forecasting.
Yeah. They are using AI for flash flood forecasting, which is notoriously difficult. Normal river floods are easier to predict because we have physical stream gauges right in the water.
Right, we have the sensors.
But flash floods happen fast, often in urban areas, and there is almost zero physical ground truth data to train a predictive model on.
What's fascinating here is that you simply cannot train a machine learning model without historical data. You need to know exactly where and when past floods happened to calculate future probabilities.
So how did they get the data?
To solve this global data scarcity, Google actually used the Gemini LLM to read through unstructured global news reports across 80 different languages.
The natural language processing feat here is staggering.
It really is.
Gemini analyzed the news, extracted spatial and temporal coordinates from really vague human phrasing, like a reporter just writing, "The river behind the church overflowed last Tuesday."
Right.
And it mapped those specific street locations and translated all of that into a structured data set of 2.6 million historical flood events.
AI is quite literally turning the world's unstructured human memory, scattered local news clippings, into a structured empirical scientific baseline.
Wow.
And by doing that, Google Maps and Flood Hub can now predict urban flash floods up to 24 hours in advance. It's reading our collective history to save lives in the future.
So we have these agents that can reason, they can perceive perfectly and pull structure out of chaos. But when you take this raw capability and shove it into highly specific, high-friction industries, generic models start to fail.
Yeah, industries don't just want a smart chatbot anymore. They want hyper-customized, bespoke models.
And Hollywood is the prime example of this friction right now. The sources report Netflix just acquired Ben Affleck's AI startup, Interpositive, for a reported $600 million.
That's a massive buyout.
It is, and they are explicitly moving away from generic generative AI to build these bespoke models.
Which makes total sense if you've ever tried to use generic video generators. They hallucinate continuity constantly.
Oh, all the time.
If you want a character to look the exact same from shot to shot, a generic model will subtly change their jacket or, like, the lighting in every frame.
So how does Interpositive actually fix that?
By doing something that is usually considered a massive mistake in machine learning.
Which is?
Extreme overfitting. Interpositive trains a model entirely on the proprietary daily soundstage footage of one specific production. They overfit the model to Ben Affleck's face in that specific costume under those specific studio lights.
So it's basically a disposable model trained just for that one movie.
Exactly.
Filmmakers can use it to manipulate the lighting in a scene or replace backgrounds with absolute frame-by-frame consistency.
And for a studio like Netflix, the side benefit is massive. Because it's trained entirely on their own close-set footage, the intellectual property and copyright infringement issues completely vanish.
That's huge. It solves the artistic continuity problem and the legal copyright problem simultaneously.
It really does. But, when we apply bespoke AI to an industry like healthcare, the real-world friction becomes deeply personal.
Oh, absolutely. Microsoft's new Copilot Health is a perfect case study for this.
It connects to 50,000 U.S. hospitals and healthcare organizations.
And it also pulls in data from your personal wearables, right? Like your Apple Watch, Oura Ring, or Fitbit. You can ask the AI to decipher your complex lab results while factoring in your sleep data from the night before.
Which, from a utility standpoint, is a massive leap in patient empowerment. It contextualizes clinical data with lifestyle data.
It's amazing.
But the source material highlights a critical legal caveat regarding how this sensitive information is actually handled.
So what does this all mean? Well, here is a serious pushback for you to consider. Microsoft notes that Copilot Health has an ISO 42001 certification for responsible AI.
Right.
But it is explicitly not HIPAA compliant. Why would a massive health AI not comply with the primary federal medical privacy law? Because it's a direct-to-consumer tool.
Exactly. The VP of Health at Microsoft AI noted that IPO compliance isn't required for a direct-to-consumer experience when you are using your own data.
Because you are voluntarily handing over your health records to a third-party tech company, the traditional legal safety nets designed for doctors' offices no longer apply.
We are eagerly uploading our most intimate biological data to chatbots just for the sake of convenience. We're effectively bypassing the privacy laws built over decades.
And that concept right there, voluntarily handing your data over to a third-party tech company, is the exact mechanism driving the biggest AI policy showdown of the day.
It is the core of the issue.
Which brings us to the collision between AI, the law, and the Pentagon. Now, it's important to frame this carefully for you. Looking at the source material, we're examining this strictly through the lens of the legal arguments presented by both sides.
Right, we're just looking at the arguments.
The Pentagon is arguing from a strict national security mandate, while Anthropic is relying on constitutional privacy rights. We aren't here to take sides or declare a winner, just to neutrally report the stances and unpack the friction of the dispute itself.
And the catalyst here is that the Pentagon recently designated Anthropic, the maker of the Claude AI model, as a supply chain risk.
Which is a designation historically reserved for hostile foreign technology, not a domestic Silicon Valley darling.
Exactly. So in response, Anthropic filed a massive lawsuit against the Pentagon, citing violations of their First and Fifth Amendment rights. They claim the government is actively seeking to destroy the economic value of their private company.
To understand a government's perspective, we really have to look at the historical context of U.S. surveillance law. This debate centers around the phrases mass surveillance and all lawful uses.
The history goes back to Ronald Reagan's Executive Order 12333, and later, the Patriot Act.
Right. Over the decades, government lawyers have continually stretched the interpretation of plain English words. For example, the intelligence community is supposed to only spy on foreign targets.
But the National Security Agency historically interpreted the word target so broadly that if two Americans inside the U.S. send a text message that merely mentioned a foreign person, that entire communication became fair game for collection and storage.
And this is where that voluntary data handover from our healthcare discussion comes back to bite us. There is a legal concept called the third-party doctrine.
Oh, the third-party doctrine is crucial here.
Yeah, it essentially means that giving your data to a tech company is like giving your diary to the mailman. Once you hand it over to a third party to deliver or store, the courts say you can't be surprised if the mailman shows it to the police.
Right.
The government can request bulk data from tech companies without a traditional Fourth Amendment warrant.
So when the Pentagon tells AI companies they want to use their models for all lawful uses, companies like Anthropic look at that history of the third-party doctrine and they balk.
Yeah, Anthropic's absolute red line is that they refuse to let their model, Claude, be used to analyze bulk commercial data.
Because if you plug an autonomous AI agent into the fire hose of bulk commercial data collected from data brokers, you aren't just searching for threats anymore.
You effectively create an automated 247 mass surveillance dragnet of American citizens. The government argues this bulk analysis is vital for national security in an era of digital warfare. Anthropic argues it's an unconstitutional invasion of privacy.
There's also a really fascinating legal argument surfacing here from a free speech advocacy group called FIRE. They argue that if the government forces Anthropic to modify its code to allow this kind of surveillance, it constitutes compelled speech.
Because legally, writing computer code has been established as a form of protected speech. You can't force a company to write code they fundamentally object to any more than you can force a newspaper to print state propaganda.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are witnessing is a high-speed collision. On one side, you have the exponential scaling of AI agent capabilities.
Yeah.
On the other, decades of deeply entrenched, heavily debated national security law. The infrastructure of surveillance was built for a pre-AI world, and injecting autonomous reasoning agents into that infrastructure is just breaking the system.
It's totally forcing everyone to handle their cards. So let's zoom out and recap the journey we just took you on for this deep dive.
We covered a lot of ground.
We started with the agentic shift AI operating on your phone, seamlessly reasoning through the UI to order your coffee and hail your rides.
We looked at how developers are abandoning their coding environments entirely to manage fleets of synthetic workers, battling the new burnout of the AI vampire.
We saw how models are expanding their perception, translating 80 languages of unstructured local news into a global flash flood warning system.
And processing millions of seconds of video entirely through semantic vector matching.
Then we covered the $600 million bespoke AI models, completely transforming how Hollywood handles artistic continuity, and the rollout of Copilot Health, operating completely outside the bounds of traditional HiPi protections.
And finally, we unpack the constitutional showdown between Anthropic and the Pentagon, highlighting how the third-party doctrine is clashing with autonomous AI.
So why should you care about all this? Because these aren't abstract academic updates happening in a vacuum. These tools are fundamentally altering the apps you tap on your screen, the media you stream, the privacy of your biological data, and very possibly the boundaries of your civil liberties.
The transition from a tool that waits for your input to an agent that acts on your behalf, it just changes our relationship with technology entirely.
And that leaves us with one final provocative thought for you to mull over today. We talked earlier about Perplexity's personal computer. You know, that digital proxy acting on your behalf 204/7.
Yeah, the Mac Mini setup.
Right. If your autonomous proxy is out there interacting with the world, reading your emails, and negotiating on your behalf, and it inadvertently violates a contract, breaks a law, or causes someone massive financial harm, who holds the legal and moral liability?
That's the million-dollar question.
Are you responsible for the actions of a machine that reasoned its way into a mistake while you were unconscious and dead?
It is a profound question, and frankly, our legal system is entirely unprepared to answer it.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. As we said at the start, for all of human history, a hammer just sat on the bench waiting for you. Well, the hammer isn't just swinging itself anymore, it's signing the contracts and arguing with the architect. We'll see you next time.